Yes. And welcome back to the Fresh Arsenal Show Transfer Shorts. And we're back again with another link coming in today. It's Raphinha of Leeds. He's been linked a few times in recent weeks. But there was an impression from many that the signing of Fabio Vieira by Arsenal would lead to Arsenal dampening their interest in the Leeds winger. But reports coming out from Brazil today suggest that Arsenal are the team making the most serious move for the player. So really interesting here to see that Arsenal looking to add a lot of attacking quality to be fair, an attack that's underperformed and has lost Lacazette or Aubameyang and probably Pepe this summer. So it is a team that needed a lot of reinforcements. So I think Arsenal are right to address it and bring in the numbers. And we know Raphinha mainly in the Premier League from playing on the right, but this is a player actually I didn't have to do much digging on because he's a player I followed in France's time in Rennes, where that is where he sort of established himself as a right midfielder. But he did play a little bit on the left and also an attacking midfielder. And before that, he played almost solely as an attacking midfielder in Portugal. So this is a player who there's been a lot of talk about how he fits in with Saka into the same team, but I think there's a number of ways we can do that, and we'll get onto that a bit later. So first, we're going to take a look at some of his strengths and goal contributions here up on the screen compared to other attacking midfielders and wingers. So his expected goals, 79th percentile, shot creating actions, 68th percentile, expected assists, 66th. So good, not incredible stats, but what we're looking at here is based on his last season performance. And we have to bear in mind, this is playing for a near relegated Leeds United. So it is very exciting to think about what he may be able to produce in terms of attacking output in a team fighting towards the top end of the table, like Arsenal or Barcelona, if he does end up there. Now, what we're looking at is dribbles and passing. And this is probably an area that a lot of people think of him as being very good in. He does attempt a lot of dribbles, 4.6 per game. His dribble success rate is actually very, very low. So only second percentile. So he's only successful with 39.6% of his dribbles. And this could be an area that frustrates some Arsenal fans. I think Raphinha would be coming in to replace Nicolas Pepe, and he's going to be more accustomed to the Premier League and already seen him produce better numbers than Pepe's managed. But it is worth noting that in some of the frustrations that Pepe does offer, like losing the ball when trying to dribble, Raphinha will be a player who does do that. He takes risk trying to dribble around players. Sometimes that breaks through. As you see, he dribbles past 2.16 players per game, which is really good, and nearly makes half a nutmeg a game. So this is a very skillful, traditional Brazilian player. Progressive passes as well, 5.22 per game, which I think is really good, especially playing in that Leeds side last season. So now we're looking at Raphinha's defensive statistics, and this is another very positive area for the player. He's very hard work, and he's had to do a lot of defensive work at Leeds, and some of these numbers could well reduce playing in a team like Arsenal because he's not having to do it as much. But it's very positive that he has that ability to track back, making 1.82 blocks per game, really, really high for a winger, 91st percentile. Tackles and interceptions, about 3 per game, 79th percentile. Reasonably good in the air as well, 0.771 per game, which is better than average. Considering his height, I thought that was quite impressive. But this just shows that Raphinha is going to work hard. A bit like Martinelli, he's got similar pedigree in being able to track and pressure opponents. So what are his weaknesses? Well, we've touched on the successful dribble one already. So he's a player who will fail to get past his man quite a lot, as well as succeeding. And passes under pressure is an area that slightly concerns me. 5.71 per game, 19th percentile there. So Arsenal are a team that do get pressed. I'm thinking in tough away games, we need players who are confident and comfortable to play on the ball under pressure and allow the team to dominate possession like they have ambitions to do in every game. So that may be a bit of a challenge for Raphinha. Again, you've got the side of it that perhaps playing in the Leeds team, he's had less opportunity to do that, but I do think it's definitely not a strength of Raphinha's. Miscontrols, again, I said Arsenal fans get frustrated at Pepe for losing the ball and miscontrols, but Raphinha does do this as well, 2.53 times per game, so 24th percentile is one of his poorer areas. Just a quick reminder to please subscribe to the show below. It'll really help us produce some more scouting insight over the course of the summer and more Arsenal related content moving into the new season. So now we're looking at how Raphinha compares to Arsenal's current set of wingers. So I've included Saka, Smith Rowe, Pepe and Martinelli on this slide. The first thing we're looking at is goals per 90. Smith Rowe comes out on top with this, mainly because he had an extraordinary run towards the start of the season where everything he struck turned to gold. And he is a real goal threat, though. And as we can see, he's averaging nearly a goal every other game, which is really positive. And I think he's had a lot of goals off the bench, which have helped boost that. But Raphinha and Saka are quite close behind at 0.34 and 0.33. So Raphinha will definitely add a positive output to the amount of goals we can score. Pepe, who he'd probably be replacing in the squad, he's near treble the amount of goals per 90. Now we're looking at expected assists, and this is where Pepe and Raphinha are pretty similar. Pepe, Raphinha and Saka all at 0.21 and 0.22. Should have shaded in Raphinha and Saka green there as well, really. But those three are the ones that look like they will create things for other players more than the rest. Now looking at shot creating actions, similar, those three players are at the top, but Saka actually comes out on top fairly comfortably with 4.29 per 90. But Raphinha ranking pretty well in there, second and closely followed by Pepe. Now we're looking at pressures, and I mentioned Raphinha's defensive statistics previously in the video, and we see him come out on top on this one, 17.7 pressures per game. And I mentioned that he's got some similar attributes to Martinelli on that front, and Martinelli very close to him in that statistic. Pepe and Saka, not bad as well, and Smith Rowe this is certainly an area where he lacks the intensity at the moment in his development to press like these other players. Now we're looking at successful dribbles. So I think if I'd gone for attempted dribbles, Raphinha may have been first here, but important to note that Raphinha has lost a lot of his attempted dribbles. So Pepe actually comes out on top. But we've seen with Pepe, on his good days, he flies past players. So it's not really a surprise to me to see Pepe coming out on top. I guess if Raphinha were to replace Pepe in the squad, we may lose a little bit in that 1v1 power, but we would gain in a lot of other areas in terms of goal output, pressures, and all the other attributes we've looked at in the video so far. And finally then, key passes. So Raphinha's coming out on top here, very closely followed by Saka. So looking at all of those areas, we can see that Raphinha and Saka are coming out the strongest. They've got the most green on their screens. Obviously, we're not looking at absolutely every aspect of these players' games, but it's clear to see from this, I think, that Raphinha would definitely add to Arsenal's set of wide players. So where does Raphinha fit into this Arsenal team then? A lot of talk about Saka and Raphinha. Does this mean Saka's leaving? Well, I don't think so, and I certainly hope not. I think what's interesting is Arsenal's links to Lisandro Martinez of Ajax as well, and I could see him coming in, perhaps making that left back spot his own, especially if Tierney continues to struggle with injury. So if he did do that, he'd be a bit of an inverted left back, as we can see on the screen now. And then we would need a bit of width on the left-hand side. So what I think we need then is Raphinha or Saka to play on the left. Obviously, both left-footed players. So I think in a system like this, we could get away with two left-footers out wide. Alternatively, Saka can't play every game. We've got 5 subs. We've got Europe. We've got a Winter World Cup. So Raphinha playing in his probably favoured position on that right wing. Saka can, of course, switch to the left as well, or this would be a chance to bring in Smith Rowe or Gabriel Martinelli. And in that instance, we more likely want to play with a wide left back who's going to stretch the pitch, because, of course, Saka, Smith Rowe and Martinelli would be cutting in inside. So it would give Arsenal a lot of options no matter what. And finally, then, a bit of a curveball, but I think it was Gunnar Blog from the Artcast, I believe, who said that he'd been led to believe that Arsenal saw Raphinha as a player who was capable of playing some minutes through the middle. And I went back and looked at his time in Brazil and in Portugal, and it is a position that he played quite a lot as he was developing. He's also played behind the striker a little bit, even for the national team quite recently. So thinking about playing in a striker position where he would drop in a little bit, like Gabriel Lacazette, perhaps. If he played there on occasions, it gives Arsenal another option through the middle, allows players like Martinelli and Saka to play either side and sort of push on as wide forwards. So my verdict then is that Raphinha, of course, adds undoubted quality to this Arsenal squad. And I think we've got to stop thinking about starting 11s and start thinking about squads of about 17, 18, because with the 5-sub rule, with European football and with injuries, you're going to need a solid 17, 18. And Raphinha comes into that group and dramatically improves it for me. So he adds goal threat, he adds 1v1 ability. And this is a player that, if Arsenal have the money, should do it. It's a lot of money for a player who perhaps doesn't 100% come into every single starting lineup. But look, £50 million, if Arsenal have it to buy a Premier League proven player in this market, I mean, you're not going to see players of his quality go for less than that. So ultimately, if the money's there, this is one Arsenal should try and get done. Thank you very much for watching the latest episode of the Fresh Arsenal Show. If you haven't watched our previous videos, please check them out. And there's a couple in the top right of the screen now.